A common headache pill costs a few rupees. You likely have them in your home right now without giving them a second thought. But compare that to Nexavar, a drug used for late-stage kidney and liver cancer, produced by the German pharmaceutical company Bayer. For an average Indian family, Nexavar was out of reach. A single month's supply cost 2,080,000 rupees. Because the drug doesn't cure the cancer, it only extends life by a few years, this price meant that most patients were simply priced out of those extra years. When asked about this pricing, the Bayer CEO was direct. He stated the company did not develop the drug for Indians, but for wealthy Westerners who had the means to pay for it. This pricing is supported by international patent law. These laws grant a corporation a multi-year monopoly on a specific chemical formula. During that time, no one else can manufacture the drug, giving the creator total control over the supply and the price. India, however, found a way to bring the price of Nexavar down from 2,080,000 rupees to just 8,800 rupees. They did this without violating international trade agreements or stealing proprietary formulas. India's rise as the pharmacy of the world was built on 3 specific legal strategies used to navigate the global patent system. This distinction is established in the 1970 Patents Act. A product patent locks the final item, like the box on the left, but a process patent only locks the specific method used to make that item. By only recognizing process patents, India allowed its scientists to look at an existing drug and find a different way to manufacture it. If they could reach the same result using a new chemical sequence, the production was considered entirely legal. This strategy became a global turning point during the African HIV crisis in the early 2000s. While Western companies were charging $10,000 a year for treatment, Dr. Yusuf Hamid, the Indian firm Cipla, used these laws to change the math. By utilizing new manufacturing processes, Indian labs were able to produce the same HIV medications for a fraction of the cost. The price for a year of treatment dropped from $10,000 to just $1 a day. While these laws saved millions of lives, a severe economic crisis in the early 1990s would soon force India to rewrite its patent system to align with the rest of the world. In 1991, India was nearly out of foreign currency. To avoid total collapse, the government had to pledge its gold reserves to international banks. Part of the recovery involved joining the WTO, which meant that by 2005, India had to start recognizing full product patents. This change should have guaranteed long-term monopolies for pharmaceutical giants, especially through a tactic called evergreening. This is when a company makes a minor, non-therapeutic change to a drug just as the patent expires, allowing them to file for a new patent and reset the clock for another 20 years. To prevent this, India added Section 3D to its laws. It states that a modified version of an old drug cannot get a new patent unless the company proves the change significantly improves the actual health outcome for the patient. The Swiss company Novartis challenged this in a high-profile case over their cancer drug, Gleevec. After years of litigation, the Indian Supreme Court ruled that the minor formula changes did not justify a new patent. The ruling allowed cheaper versions of the drug to remain on the market. Section 3D successfully limited the use of patent extensions. However, it still didn't provide a solution for patients who needed immediate access to brand-new, patented drugs they couldn't afford. Even with the new laws, a legitimately new drug still receives a 20-year monopoly. For a patient with a terminal diagnosis, waiting 2 decades for a patent to expire is not a viable option. India addressed this through Section 84, or compulsory licensing. This part of the law allows the government to authorize other companies to manufacture a patented drug if 3 conditions are met: too expensive for the public, not available in sufficient quantities, or not manufactured locally. This is exactly what happened with Bayer's Nexavar. Investigations showed that Bayer was only reaching about 2% of the patients who needed the drug in India. Because the price was high and the supply was low, the government determined the patent was not serving the public interest. In 2012, India granted a license to a local company, Notco, to produce a generic version of Nexavar. This was the first time the country had used this specific legal authority, and it resulted in an immediate 97% price drop. This outcome established that, within India's jurisdiction, the rights of a patent holder are not absolute. By prioritizing patient access over price controls, India demonstrated that corporate protections have limits when they intersect with a public health necessity. India currently produces 60% of the world's vaccines and 40% of the generic medicines sold in the United States. However, this entire system relies on raw chemical bases, called active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs. These are the primary ingredients needed to manufacture any medication. Currently, India imports about 70% of these ingredients from China. For critical medicines like penicillin, that dependency is nearly total. Over several decades, the Chinese government subsidized its chemical industry, allowing them to produce APIs at prices that Indian manufacturers couldn't match. As a result, India's own production of these raw materials largely disappeared. This reliance means that if the supply chain from China were disrupted by a conflict or another pandemic, India's pharmaceutical industry could come to a standstill within weeks. To address this, the Indian government is now funding domestic production to rebuild its API manufacturing capacity. The goal is to ensure that the country is not just a hub for finishing medicines, but a self-sufficient producer of the ingredients. Western pharmaceutical companies continue to argue that without high profit margins, there is no incentive to spend billions on researching the next generation of life-saving drugs. This leads to a difficult question for the global medical community. What is the actual value of a breakthrough cure if the people who need it most cannot afford to buy it? India utilized the complexities of the patent system to make medicine more accessible. Its next challenge is to prove it can move beyond refining existing formulas and become a leader in inventing the new drugs the world needs.